This is a morning of sadness for the world, for the Commonwealth and all Australians.
The Opera House will be lit.
One of the most significant human beings to have ever walked the planet.
She was our sovereign. One of humanity's brightest lights has gone out.
Since Friday, people around the world have been mourning a monarch who presided over Britain and her dominions for a staggering 70 years.
Mr. Speaker,
politicians here and abroad have been leading the tributes and have been keen to be seen to be doing so.
The keystone in the vast arch of the British state.
She did not simply reign over us. She lived alongside us.
The protocol of dealing with a sovereign's death turns out to be exceptionally detailed and, given Queen Elizabeth's great longevity, not much practised. The protocol whirred seamlessly into action in Australia early on Friday morning. First, marking the death of the sovereign, and then the rise of her successor.
With hearty and humble affection, we promise him faith and obedience. God save the King.
The declaration of Charles III as King of Australia and all the pledges of obedience may have sounded a bit jarring to people from our now very culturally diverse population.
God save the King.
God save the King.
We promise him faith and obedience.
The pledges of faith and obedience and of prayers to God contrast with a political discussion that has become more agnostic and increasingly independent in tone, if not in constitutional form. It may in fact be a shock to many Australians to even realise that the Prime Minister is not the head of state, and that in fact we have a separate head of state who doesn't even live here. While the constitutional roles of the Queen and the Governor-General are often debated, their ceremonial role has been much less clear and has also been increasingly usurped by Prime Ministers.
Because the Queen's been, in fact, on the other side of the world, it's never really made a lot of sense that she's able to represent Australia to Australians at moments, particularly, for example, of national crisis. So there's been a bit of a vacuum, and into that vacuum, particularly since John Howard, the Prime Minister, has come.
Good luck. I hope to see you all back safe and sound.
They were things which in previous generations the Governor-General would have done.
Our head of state may be the head of state of another country, but that makes it seem even stranger that while the British House of Commons sat on Friday to hear condolence speeches on Her Majesty's death, it was immediately announced that this week's planned sitting of our Parliament in Canberra was cancelled.
I think it was appropriate, and protocols required the automatic cancellation, but we want to make up those days.
Strangely, it seems like no one, including the Prime Minister, was exactly sure who sets down these protocols.
I, as Prime Minister, have followed the procedures that have been in place for a lot longer than I've been in place as Prime Minister.
But why couldn't Parliament today and tomorrow have been put aside for condolence motions now? And that's what the British Parliament has done. And who sets out these protocols and procedures? Nobody seems to actually know who actually sorted them out in the first place.
They were set out a long time ago, Laura. And what I have done, what I have done is to not overturn those arrangements. I think that we've seen enough of breaches of protocol and arrangements and conventions.
The PM's office later insisted the suspension of Parliament was consistent with the approach in the UK, New Zealand and Canada, where all substantial parliamentary business has been postponed. This doesn't explain why the scheduled sitting of Parliament here could not have gone ahead today and focused on condolence speeches, as it is now scheduled to do on September 23. The PM's office said the protocols had been recommended by the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet in close consultation for the last decade with Buckingham Palace.
King of Antigua and Barbuda, but for how much longer?
In the Caribbean, the Queen's death has invigorated a push to at least one new republic. Here, the Prime Minister has made it clear his priority for constitutional reform remains the Indigenous voice to Parliament. The Republic, which Labor has long supported, will have to wait.
This is a time where Australians expect their Prime Minister to act in accordance with the constitutional arrangements which are there in place now.
But senior figures in the government are alive to the fact that what might be surprising news to some, that Charles is now King of Australia, may give some impetus to a longer debate about a republic. And in the meantime, observing all the royal protocols means the Prime Minister may be irritating the left, but has a platform to appeal to a group of voters who might otherwise not hear him.